next presenter is Katz from Linguistics.
Let's talk about Siri, the digital assistant in Apple smartphones. Better yet, let's talk to Siri. If you ask her, "How are you?" she'll respond, "I'm fine, thanks." You might expect her to ask how you are in return, since you'd expect it of another human, but she doesn't. The conversation ends there. Here's a worse one. If you tell Siri, "I'm not feeling well," you might expect some sympathy, or maybe the phone numbers for a nearby doctor. Instead, she responds sarcastically along the lines of, "I suppose you don't." Why are her responses so strange? It's because Siri doesn't know how to interpret implied meaning. She doesn't get that there's more to what we humans say than the actual words that we say. I intend to change that, or at least to create a theoretical framework for changing that. My thesis is about speech acts, utterances that do things, like requests, promises, descriptions, apologies. A number of categories have been identified over the last 50 years, but one thing that these older classification systems don't take into account is how these different types of utterances can be used to be polite or impolite. Let's take requests, for example. You're trying to get somebody to do something that you want them to do that they might not necessarily do otherwise. You can make the request politely by making them feel good about doing what you want, or by making doing what you want seem like less of a burden. Alternatively, you can make the request impolite by phrasing it as a demand or as a threat. Now, as speakers of English, we're expected to be polite, and over the course of our lives, we build up a repertoire in our head of polite things to say and polite ways to respond to people. Siri doesn't have that, which is why a lot of her responses to us can be inappropriate. In my thesis, I described this repertoire so that Siri and future AIs could be programmed to use politeness. Having polite AI is a big step on the road toward having AI that can talk and think like humans. This is a number of benefits to society, but the closest one to my heart is the benefit to children with autism spectrum disorders who don't instinctively pick up on conversational cues and have to be taught to recognize them. Imagine being such a child and having a computer friend who could not only teach you the correct, appropriate ways to respond to people, but who could listen to you patiently and not judge you for getting it wrong. That would be wonderful. And the first step towards getting there might just be teaching Siri to say, "I'm fine, thanks. How are you?" Thank you.